Bible tells us, to whom much is given, much is expected. And in an earlier series this summer, I talked about the danger of regarding the ethic of entitlement for what you have earned and what is rightfully yours, and your concern over tax and spend issues with society and politics, and how important it is not to fall in that trap, because what you've earned is God's gift through the talents, the opportunities, the abilities, and the legacy that you have that has put you at an advantage over many others. And we need to remember that in a way of stewardship. And along those lines, to whom much is given, much is expected, I want to think with you about the danger also of being very shallow, almost to the point of being out of touch and unaware of serious issues going on all around us in our culture. Off and on, I have preached in ways that might lead us to think about the fact that our material and dollar-driven endeavors can be so consuming and distracting that they blind us to a lot that's going on around us in humanitarian or spiritual ways. But another issue I see to the lack of awareness and the shallowness is what we're seeing with our American news media, which can be very demoralizing. It can be very filled with propaganda. It can be very agendaed and one-sided. Earlier this summer, my staff in a meeting processed through a story that had come up that brought questions about a large church in Dallas and another one in Florida. The vice president had visited the one in Dallas. The president has ties to the pastor of a Florida megachurch, and it said each of those churches had received large amounts of money from a grant from the government. Well, the article was true, they had. But what the publicity did not share was the fact that that was a part of the government grant program dealing with the coronavirus, and churches of all sizes, shapes, and descriptions were eligible, and lots of other churches that didn't get visited by the vice president or didn't have ties to Donald Trump also got funding. Reminds me of the oath in the legal office. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Journalism has lost sight of that, and partial truths can be shared to mislead, and you're smart enough to be aware of that. And lots of people have just turned a deaf ear as a result. The danger is we become ill-informed or uninformed, and we start making decisions about ethics, values, priorities, principles, politics, citizenship, discipleship from an uninformed position, and that is dangerous. Because to whom much is given, much is expected. And I would suggest that the Spirit would encourage us to use the gifts we've been given to filter. Don't turn it off. Don't deny it. Don't put your head in the sand like an ostrich, but filter. Think about what your mind and spirit can do to filter. What does a filter do? Behind me, I have pictures of two filters. They're both air filters for an air conditioning system. One is a standard filter that is in the vents you see in a place of business or in a home. The bigger one here is a big box filter that I have in the church-owned parsonage that is up in the attic. They told me when they changed it several years ago that that home had had a smoker in it at some point because they had cigarette smoke in that filter, and no one knew it was up there. It was up there for years. But a filter allows the air to be cleaned so that what goes into the house is of a clean nature. Coffee filter shields the grounds from the water that flows through it and allows the sweet result of the coffee with the grounds filtered out. Your automobile has an oil filter, an air filter. There's all different kinds of filters. Filters filter out what we don't want and leave what we do want. And that's the way we have to approach the propaganded, politically agendaed news media that we have in our culture today. Great biblical literature has the same effect for us. Think about the 23rd Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. In verse 4, it says, Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. The psalmist tells us that, yes, we're going to die. Death, in other words, is a part of God's plan for life. But we're filtered from the eyes of spirituality and great faith in understanding that it's not a bad thing. And we don't have to be afraid of it. Our fear is a humanitarianly produced fear, like a shadow that's only an illusion, where a light shines and creates a shadow. Move the object and there is no shadow. Turn the light off and there is no shadow. Faith is the light by which the shadows can disappear. So as we move in to this continued challenge that we are facing as a world with this virus, and move toward important political decisions as we move into the fall, don't be left behind, distracted by all of your personal affairs, or turning a deaf ear or a blind eye to the news media because it is far from perfect. Let God's grace provide you with that wonderful filter where you can see objectively based on all the stuff and wade through the propaganda and make good and educated decisions that benefit the cause of Christ, other people, as well as yourself. Thanks for being with me for this week's Midweek Devotional.